The dark they came, stragglers at the end of day one on the Great Australian Bike Challenge. The cyclists are travelling across the broadest section of the country, from Steep Point on Shark Bay in the west, all the way across to Byron Bay in New South Wales. Bob and Jane Simpson from Scotland are riding a tandem bike, and day one...
Oh, it's quite different. I think it'll be very different.
The first leg took a little longer for some than they'd expected, and for one competitor it was all too much. The towel's already been thrown in. But the small town of Useless Loop turned it on for the visitors with the obligatory barbie. The locals aren't so sure, though, about the sanity of those who travel more than 4,000 hellish kilometres of dirt and sand track.
I reckon they're crazy.
Crazy, completely crazy.
The man behind all this, Australian adventurer Hans Tholstrup, who says it'll be no picnic.
There's no water, there's no toilets, there's just flies and dust and dirt and terrible conditions. So that is an enormous culture shock for some people, and they just don't realise it until they get there.
And this morning, a few last-minute checks and off into the unknown. Andrew Porter, 7 Nightly News.
25 riders started out on day 2 of the Great Australian Bike Challenge.
5,200 kilometres of this. Goodness gracious.
By tomorrow they'll probably be using stronger language, and the field will almost certainly be a few riders shorter. Rod Evans, an Australian record holder among a field of world champions, regrets his lack of fitness.
I'm just relying on memory and guts at the moment.
He'll need a lot of both with what's ahead. He and his companions will do 10 hours of this every day for the next 3 weeks. No doubt the finish line at Byron Bay on the east coast will be a welcome sight. All agree it won't be speed that will win this race.
There's going to be the last person standing now.
At least they haven't got too much traffic to worry about. Jeff Parry, 7 Nightly News. It's fast becoming a mission impossible, a 5,200 kilometre bike race through Australia's heart. Day 3, half the contestants have fallen by the wayside.
It's extraordinary, the terrain that the riders are going through. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Peter Evans and his wife Margaret are driving one of the support vehicles. Their son Rod, an Australian champion, one of the contestants.
It's almost too rough for a car, some of it. There's sand on the road in places that's so thick that the riders actually fall off. Without any exaggeration, yesterday there would have been 20 riders fall.
Several more riders were forced out of the race today, beaten by the conditions. By early afternoon, Englishman James Moverley had established a 10-minute lead on the rest of the field. But it's stamina and perseverance that Peter Evans believes will get riders through.
These guys are so serious that some of them ride straight past the lunchtime stop.
The field will pass through Meekatharra tomorrow morning, heading east, 20 or more days to go. Jeff Parry, 7 Nightly News.
I'm starting to feel really good.
Amazing considering what these people are doing to their bodies, kilometre after bone-jarring kilometre, as they race across Australia from west to east.
I think 80% of them don't know what they were in for.
Day 4 in the field of international riders has passed through Meekatharra, with the Americans still not sure which side of the road they should be on.
Wrong side, folks!
Among the leaders, Perth's Scott Sharples.
It's easy to sit on that pace, but as I don't know what I'm going to be like in 5 days.
With so little of the distance covered and so much still to go, it's amazing how hard the leaders are riding. They're really attacking this race as though it's a 2 or 3 day event, not 22 days plus.
I can't believe it. It's still 4,000 kilometres to go.
At the end of yesterday's leg, only half of the 38 riders who set out from Steep Point on WA's Shark Bay are still in the race and eligible to win it.
That's my main thing, is to just finish.
Elaine has ridden across America in 10 days flat, but this is a lot tougher.
Sometimes it's rocky, sometimes it's sandy.
One thing for sure though, it's going to get a lot harder before it gets any easier. At Meekatharra, John Mort, 7 Nightly News.
39 riders from 5 nations set out from Western Australia a fortnight ago. Most decided the 5,000 kilometre trek to Byron Bay is too hard, and not just because of the cycling.
I'm tired of being a part of it. I came here to ride across, to be challenged by Australia and see it, and it's no longer any fun.
Well, we're only halfway and we're all extremely tired. We just want a day off. We want to get away from these bikes and away from the corrugations.
With tensions high over the heat, the bush roads and the pace, tempers have flared.
But how is this going to change if we go there tonight?
So, of course, there's a lot of anger at the nearest anger post because you can't make it. And it is a tough event.
With no sponsorship, the winner's consolation will be a plaque worth $40 and the knowledge that he's the first to conquer the nation by pedal power.
What's been the hardest? The sand?
Last 2 days.
Or the mud? The race organizer.
Riders expect to complete the race in 12 days. Pam Mackay, 7 Nightly News.
They came from all over the world, 40 of the best and toughest riders you'd find anywhere. They came to race more than 5,000 kilometres across the Australian deserts, from Steep Point on WA's Shark Bay to Byron Bay on the east coast. It turned out to be 3 weeks of hell.
It's a very corrugated, very rough, gravelly old road out there and sandy.
Perth's Rod Evans came back to international racing after a broken leg had just about ended his career. He hadn't trained properly and had to try to ride into form.
I had no choice. I either rode myself into fitness or died out there.
Top-class European teams dropped out after a week, unable to handle the pace or the pressure. But Rod, despite busting 2 bikes, kept on and finished 6th, the only Aussie to cross the line.
I was known as the person that used to pull out and then be back in every day.
Rod reckons he's back to his best.
I'll be into training and hopefully towards the end of the year world records in the making.
There's been a lot of criticism from riders about the organisation of the race.
It certainly wasn't conducted to the level of an international standard event this time.
But it could become one of the world's best bike races. It certainly would be the toughest. John Mort, 7 Nightly News.